So what was the take on barbarians?
The deal we had done on relationships.
Now, see, some of you, no. Nobody went to a good school in here. You went to a semi-good school.
I ended up at Princeton for...
Okay, well, I mean, that's it. You went to a good graduate school. Yeah, that's it. None of you went to worth a shit. So you have no connections. But you already know that. That's why you're here. If I was watching Churchill, Life and Legends, last week or two, along with Hitler and God knows else. Not everybody, most people that aren't looked up to Churchill is. And his family, Churchill's family, were big hitters back to 1469, 1465. 3 years before this place was given to the Guthries. What was your family doing in the 1400s? Are you the first generation that had the presence of mind to know that you're not worth a shit? Probably. And in Winston's Churchill, although I met a Winston Churchill when I went to get my investiture by the Queen, but it wasn't. He said, by the way, my name's Dan Peña, Winston Churchill here. I almost fucking shit. And he's a little guy about this tall, and then his wife smiled, and then before I could even say anything, he says, no, I'm not related. Now, why in the fuck would anybody name their kid Winston Churchill? Anyway, but virtually everybody in his family went to Oxford and Eton, but their family dates back before, pre-Eton, because Eton didn't go back to the 1400s. Eton, Oxford, except Churchill. Because Churchill, his father told him he was as thick as two short planks. That means he had an IQ of about the average of this room. You're never going to make university, so they sent him to Sandhurst. You're going to have to be an officer. That's the second best thing we can do. We can buy you into Sandhurst. We can buy you a commission. That's how they used to do it back in the good old days. And he always was a poor student. And you know how I tell you you've got daddy issues? Well, he died 70 years to the day, to the week, the month, the week, the day, and the hour that his dad died, 70 years prior. And he was always trying to please his dad. His dad said he wasn't worth a shit. He wanted to sit in Parliament with his father, and who at one time I believe was the Chancellor of the Exchequer. And so his whole life, and he was a wuss. He was a pussy in school, and so he did these brave things, which we've talked about. You know, I tell you to do something, and almost everybody in this room, you can't find anything to scare yourself. How many times have I, especially this thick shit, this bald fuck right here, I could scare him in 5 minutes. He's not the only one, but he's the one I remember. And he happens to be sitting right here. So he had to go out of his way. And that's why he did all the brave things he did. He became a correspondent because nobody wanted to let him really fight. And then he joined the army, and he did these, and he charged up this hill. And as his wife told him when he was dying, "You're not doing a cavalry charge, Winston. You should go find something." And some of you already have one. What does that say?
Winston.
This is for you. You can rub on your snatch. And when I call you a cunt, it's because you're a coward. And everybody in this room has showed cowardly. Please take one and pass it around. That's the real reason that you're not, I talked to, that's not true. I emailed with Josh last night, and I told you, I shared some of it with you. He says, go fuck yourselves, basically. Don't bother them on LinkedIn. Just leave them alone, basically, is what he says. For whatever reason, as a 17-year-old, he's got big cojones. Super big. And somebody last night at dinner asked me, are his parents what you thought they would be like? I said, yes, but better. West Point dad, strict disciplinarian, super smart, well-educated mom who is a child psychologist who studied the book by Spock, going to the university. Just all the things that your family didn't do. And, Josh, congratulations, Mrs. Kim. You're pregnant again with a 10th kid. She needs more kids like I need to lose more hair on my head. But Allah be with you, you know. So Churchill went out of his way, just as when I told you about Teddy Roosevelt. He was a wuss, too. He was a pussy. So he did charges up San Juan Hill. And y'all look at me like, Dan, why do I need to charge up San Juan Hill? Because you're a cunt and you can't make decisions. And then when you do make decisions, you make them too fucking slow. The Year Mentor program isn't meant for a year to do the deal. It's so you can do 4 or 5 deals so I can monitor them for a year. But you're better off than the guys on YouTube because you're here. Now, I've gotten some comments back from Brian QLA Rose's movie about me, and so far it's 100% positive, which either they didn't give me the negative ones yet, or they're still coming, or they're too lazy to send the negative ones yet. Brian, congratulations. So far, that's a very inspiring story of what I would say is not how not to do it. Easy, you know. These aren't giraffes you're climbing up the ass of. And the reason I say that is we have a young man here from a part of the world where they rape animals. They climb up ladders and they fuck giraffes up the ass. So the movie was so far positively taken. We're gonna see it later on in the week. But the Barbarians at the Gate with some of the guys that I actually knew from my previous existence in the Wall Street firm. What else about Barbarians?
The big guys don't handle the details.
Correct. Now, speaking of details, guys, these are 3 different cases. Actually, this is 2 cases here. Make sure you get a picture of that. There's about 4 pieces of paper. This is 1 case from one of you meatheads. This is another case from one of you meatheads. And this, which you can't see, is another case from one of you meatheads. Now, why 1 page or 2 pages as opposed to this? Why? Somebody's stupid. How did Rick Scott? Healthcare telco, Dan, which should I go into? Healthcare telco. 3.5 Bloody Marys later. Healthcare it is. May God, Allah, and Buddha strike me fucking dead if that's not the absolute truth. There's people in this room that still haven't made a decision. There's people on the fucking YouTube that will never make a decision. Now, this is pathetic. Nobody from Ireland? Yeah, lives in Ireland, but not Irish. Pathetic. We ran out of paper on the machine 3 fucking times. If you need that much information to make a decision, I mean, kill yourself, metaphorically. I brought it in. We were just going to shit can it all. But when I went through the 60 cases, a few days, it took me a while to get through that. I went through that material, by the way. And there is a black mark, for those of you that sent me that kind of stuff, by your name, that's irreversible. It'll never go away. Because I kept thinking maybe the next bunch of papers is going to give me something that's going to actually substantiate or validate all the other papers that I've already looked at. Didn't happen, not one. But that's as graphic as, and I've got a slide coming up where Trump shows the old tax forms that you need to get a new business and such, and it's like 6 or 7 feet times 7, thousands and thousands and thousands of pages, and how it's been replaced by this many. Tax regulation. For the first time in the United States, you're going to be able to do your tax form on the back of a postcard, supposedly. And then I'm looking at this shit. The movie last night was, anybody that was in the business realized that it was a fuck deal before the deal ever got done. It was a fuck deal.
Someone talked.
Pardon?
Because they talked.
Yeah, well, no, not just because they talked, but because when and the only reason, not the only reason, but one of the only reasons that deal got done was because of fees. Because of fees, yeah.
Yeah, that $200 million that the 1% fee was that insulated from the deal blowing up? That they got that no matter what happened?
I don't know. I think it was, but and I told you I have not seen the deal die with delayed fees since I discovered delayed fees in 1981 when I had to pay the £500,000 on that roll-up that failed when I first came to the UK, and that's how I discovered delayed fees. And one of the lawyers we had said, Dan, nobody does this. You didn't ask for delayed fees, so we're not in the business of offering them. But nobody does deals like this. Well, this young guy's not going to do them again that way for sure. And so I discovered the hard way, where the deal, a 13-company roll-up, failed and got blown out of the water. Actually, on the week that Prince Charles married Princess Di. So I remember it forevermore. But the deals like that, there's plenty of other deals that have gotten done because it's based on fees and no other reason. AOL is another prime example. Time Warner, the deal shouldn't have gotten done. And if you follow these big deals around long enough, for 5 or 8 or 9 years later, they undo them. So then they're candidates for us doing our scavenger bottom fishing to roll up then refragmented industries. But virtually all the big companies in the world are a product of some sort of consolidation, from British Telecom to General Motors, you name it. United States Steel back in the old days when Andrew Carnegie was rolling up. And one of the things that seemed to resonate, especially with the University of Edinburgh kids that I spoke at a few weeks ago, is that this is the Carnegie model. Andrew Carnegie didn't believe in equity, meaning he'd have to give up ownership. He believed in debt, as they say here in Europe, debt. And so the cash flow didn't cover debt service. He didn't do it. So that was in the late 1800s, more or less. And when I didn't point in the right direction when I was at Edinburgh. I didn't know which way Dunfermline was, but not too far from there. And it still exists today. And in this country, Scotland, not the UK, Scotland, you're hard pressed to find a university that doesn't benefit from one form or another of the Andrew Carnegie scholarships, university scholarships. And down in south of Scotland, there's buildings and bridges and all kinds of stuff named after them, as they should be. But, we gave a lot of money. Anything else about the movie? Yes, ma'am.
The women in the movie, the PR lady.
Were there any black chicks? No, no black chicks. Huh? Okay.
In the background.
Okay, in the background. Okay.
The lady that was the PR lady, she gave bad information, that he took seriously. And she was saying that the guy was skiing, and he wasn't skiing. you know, and so you should never trust your people. You should make sure that you go with your decision, because they should have had that backup plan in case those guys came back in.
That reminds me of the last big deal that Sally did while she was at ENY. It was in the United States, and she was there, and it was over, I forget, some 3 or 4 day weekend in the United States, and the managing partner of the firm that she was with wasn't there to make key decisions. He was skiing in Aspen, Colorado, and so Sally, as my memory serves me, called the big wig of the firm and said, well, I can't do this deal, or I'm going to do this based on all my own decisions because the guy's not here. And so, lo and behold, the next morning early, the guy shows up. Needless to say, Sally didn't make a friend there, but because she didn't want to have the information filtered from some guy on the ski slopes down to 1 or 2 or 3 subordinates. It may or may not have been accurate information, so she got the deal done. Then she, in her infinite wisdom, as I tell her, she's got a slightly different story. She decided to leave ENY and join me at the Guthrie Group a long time ago now. But that's how deals got done, and that's how deals still get done. And the connections, and that's why the smart kids, their parents have been sending them to good schools, not because they learn anymore, but because it's ostensibly the connections they make, lifetime connections. When Lurch and I were in Poland at those universities, we were lucky enough to be shown around when we were at one of the universities by a Cambridge guy and an Oxford lady, husband and wife, and they were talking about how their daughter was going to such and such a school in the UK for the connections. And it's the same school that Richard Branson went to. So if Richard Branson went to it, with the greatest respect to Richard, it's not Eton. It means you're just rich, not smart, not rich and smart. But they made a point. They went out of their way. Normally, when you meet somebody that went to Oxford, Harvard, Cambridge, those schools, the first sentence out of their mouth, I didn't know you at Cambridge, did I? Were you a 5-fucker up your ass at Princeton? No, I don't think so. Why? Normally, that's the only claim to fame that they have. But when you went to a school that you got to explain about, like myself, now some of you didn't go to even a school that you got to explain about. You went to nothing. In some cases, nothing's better than the school you got to explain about. But nobody ever asked me, well, what school was that, Dan? I've been saying school you got to explain about for about 25 years. Nobody's ever asked me. Just like they never asked me how much I made on the oil contract with the government. Just like they never asked me, the guy that left here, the Oxford student that went over and made several $100 million. They never asked me their names. Just like they don't go to, how do you get the fucking money and deal flow on my website? Just like they hardly ask anything about Josh. On that happy note, see you later, YouTubers.